Hello, everyone. Eric Olsen from Helps here today on October 8th, 2025. Um, um, Good to have you here. So my name's Eric. I've been an attorney now for 46 years, the founder of Helps. Helps is a national law firm that represents seniors and disabled persons. Uh, what we do is we protect seniors from debt collector harassment. We do that by sending out what's called a cease and desist letter. And we represent our clients ongoing, literally forever, so they never have to deal with collectors again. And what we do is educate seniors this fact: your Social Security is protected, your pension is protected, your IRA, your 401ks, virtually all forms of retirement are protected. Can't be taken from you. There's even means where it's protected in your bank account. So we do this YouTube live session Monday through Thursday because our second mission is to educate seniors how they can maintain their financial independence. And so what we do is you have questions, you can put them in the chat feature, I'll answer them. And I have questions from clients that have emailed us or from some of our videos on our YouTube page, different things. And so don't be bashful about asking questions. I'll be glad to answer them. And sometimes there are people in our program that have questions among themselves or comments, which is fine. I try to identify the questions and pick them out. So good to have you here today. I hope things are going well with you wherever you're at. Okay. The whole purpose of Helps is if you're a senior or disabled, HELP stands for Help Eliminate Legal Problems for Seniors. You know, if you have a question about your financial situation, about your debt, and you're worried, and maybe you've been told some information and now you're not sure if it's quite right, don't hesitate to call us, okay? You can look at the comments, look at our YouTube videos, look at our website, www.helpsishere.org. Google our reviews. You can tell what we do, and we give seniors honest advice. Unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation given to seniors out there. A lot of websites and a lot of articles about seniors with debt will never tell a senior the things you're going to hear from me, specifically the fact that your Social Security is protected, and so is your other income, and it can't be taken from you, and you don't have to sign up for debt management or debt settlement. Even if you get sued, you're not going to have to go to court. They're not going to take your assets. You're going to be fine. Why is there so much misinformation? Well, there's almost a concerted effort by debt collectors to keep these things that we talk about here on this channel from seniors. They don't want seniors to know that their income is protected. They want them to pay. And the law doesn't require a debt collector to tell you this. All they have to do is say, hey, our debt collector, anything we learn can be used for that purpose. They're not going to tell you your income is protected. And unfortunately, a lot of debt settlement or debt management companies that advertise, even the nonprofit ones, to help seniors, with few exceptions, they don't tell seniors the fact their income is protected. Instead, they sign them up, often putting a senior into utter poverty, making a payment they can't afford to pay. If you're signed up with a debt management or debt settlement company, and you're on Social Security or a pension or other protected income, IRA, 401k, and you were never told when you signed up with this company that your income was protected, then you were given the complete truth. If they would have told you your income was protected and there's a way to stop the creditors from harassing you, you could have made the decision, hey, I don't need to sign up with these people. I can use this money that I'm paying them for my food, for my rent, for my medicine, for my needs. Instead, they sign people up, putting some, like I said, into utter poverty. So thanks for being here today. Don't want you to worry. You know, I tell seniors, and I've already said it 2 or 3 times today to people that I talked to earlier. I said, if you ever have a question, you call. Okay, if you're worried or scared, you pick up the phone and you call. You know, the thing about Helps, when you enroll with Helps, you're literally our client forever, and there's no restrictions on how many times you can call. You don't get charged for every call you make. That's not how we work it. We're kind of like a subscription service, you know, and we don't turn anyone away. A significant percentage of our clients get our help for free. Those that pay a very small amount. But you're literally our client ongoing, so you never have to deal with collectors. So I'll start out with one comment some guy said here. Okay, he says, Can they send you to jail for those debts? No. There's no debtor's prison in the United States. No, there hasn't been for, I don't know, early 1800s. They, no, there's no debtor's prison. That's one of the things that America was founded on, the fact, back in Europe, you could get thrown in jail for not paying your debts. But when America came to be, our lawmakers said, no, we're not going to do that. Okay, so no, you don't go to jail for not paying your debts. You don't need to worry about that. I don't get asked that question very often, but if I do get asked that, I give an emphatic no, you're not going to go to jail. Okay, now this person calls us from Maryland. Oh, I talked to them this morning, and a nice couple. A husband was sick. I think he was in the latter 60s and she was in her middle 60s. They had a mobile home on land and they owed around $40,000 on it. Not sure what it was worth, but a few years ago they thought it was worth about $75,000. It could be worth a little bit more today. They had a fairly high payment on the mobile home, like $1,100 a month, or maybe a little bit more than that. They have a few judgments against them, against the husband and the wife. Okay. And what they called about, they were worried about, they may be getting an award for a personal injury award, for someone had done something and they're going to get an award for, I don't know, $50,000 or thereabouts. And they were worried if they were going to lose that. Well, most states, including Maryland, protects proceeds from a personal injury award. So if someone were to sue them and get a judgment, and I'm pretty sure they were getting sued if I remember right, they can't take that personal injury award. I told them they could put it in a separate account, have it identified. If there ever was a garnishment, then they could show proof that that money came from a personal injury award. Court would order it be released. So it's not at risk. Now, why do states protect personal injury awards? Well, you get a personal injury award for a lot of different reasons. So one of them is maybe you lost some wages or whatever. So it's common for a state to protect the proceeds from a personal injury award. It's not unusual. Okay. They have debt at least 10,000, probably more, and we discuss what to do. They don't need to pay the debt, and if they want to enroll in helps, if they're being harassed by creditors, they can do that. They didn't enroll then, but they can call back. We talked about what to do if one of the spouses pass away, and then that spouse's Social Security their only income is Social Security. If one of them passes away, then the surviving spouse gets the higher of the two Social Securities. And we talked about what to do then, and they could always call us back with questions. And they had called us before, actually 4 years ago, and then they called again either yesterday or today, and we called them back. So it's not unusual for people that enroll in helps to call us 2, 3, 4, or 5 times before they decide to enroll. Some people enroll on the spot. It doesn't matter where you are in your financial situation. Some people are completely current on everything, but they finally realize they can't pay it anymore. Other people have been sued multiple times, and they don't want to put up with it anymore, and they need our help so they don't have to deal with the creditors or the collectors. And some people are behind a few months and are starting to get a bunch of phone calls. I talked to someone yesterday. I remember they said, Eric, I was only behind a week, and they're ringing. My phone is ringing off the hook. So it depends. Some creditors can get pretty aggressive on trying to collect. Okay. So put your questions in the comment. Okay. And you can always call us toll free 855-435-7787. There's people that can answer questions right now. Talk to us later. Don't want you to worry. So person contacts us from Virginia. He said, I'm requesting information on behalf of my mother. She is 78, widowed. Her income is Social Security, military retirement from her husband's service, and her late husband's federal employee pension. Um, so if you're married and your husband or your wife gets a pension, are you going to be entitled to their pension when they pass away? Well, it depends when they got the pension, what they did, and most of the time you would be. It depends on how much the spouse claimed on the pension. If they claimed a whole lot, then you might not be entitled to it, or in this case, she's going to be entitled to at least half her husband's pension, federal pension. Uh, and it goes on and says she does not own a house, and her only personal property is a car, and she has significant credit card debt, which consumes more than half of her disposable income. So, and it says, I ran across your services and want to help her understand her options and how best to get her out of her financial situation. So if you're a son or daughter, brother or sister, friend or relative that's trying to help a family member, yeah, you can call us. We can talk about their situation. A lot of times, we talk to a lot of kids that are watching out for mom and dad, and we're happy to do a joint call with you and your parent. We do that all the time. Depending on the situation, we don't necessarily have to do that, but no, we always talk to children that are trying to help their mom and dad. In fact, I have a special form letter that sometimes I'll send to someone that's called "Thank you for watching out for mom," because you know mom doesn't know what to do, and she's in this financial information like this person was from Virginia, and the daughter reached out to us and says half my mom's income is going to pay debt. Well, she doesn't need to do that anymore. Yeah, see, understand that almost half of seniors have incomes within 200% of the poverty line. Okay, now that's classified as being economically vulnerable. So if you have 100 seniors, 50 they're okay. They're making enough, and then maybe 50 of them uh, are struggling because their income is lower. Now, a significant portion of those 50 that have lower income have incomes less than the poverty line. But even if you have more money than that and you have debt, you can be struggling financially. So if you're having these problems as a senior, you're not alone. Okay, there's a lot of seniors that have the same problem. We don't want you to worry. Okay. So Mrs. Ace asked a question. She's always got good questions here. They're fun to answer. When living in an unlimited homestead state, that would be like Texas or Kansas, South Dakota, probably North Dakota, Oklahoma, pretty much Florida, a lot of states. Quite a few states have unlimited homestead exemptions. That means you can have all the equity in your home that's protected from creditors, from debt collectors. Okay, if you have an unlimited homestead and they have 5 acres and a family member built another home on that land, paid off the home, had credit card debt, they didn't pay, can they put a lien on the senior's property? No, not if the property is titled in the senior's name. Okay. Now you might have a hard time getting a second home built on the property unless you have the property divided, but they may allow a second home to be built for a family member on a 5 acre plot. But if the property's in the senior's name, a judgment against someone else who has a home on that property, they don't have a legal interest in the property because their name isn't on the title. So no, there wouldn't be a lien for there to be on that property. Have you heard of a bank that didn't follow federal law regarding the protected amount? Well, okay, that rule went into effect in 2012, Rick. And at the beginning, it took a while for everyone to get on board. For the first year, there was a problem, and the banks pretty much follow the law from the get go. Credit unions had a problem for quite a while, but we essentially don't hear about that anymore, even with credit unions. But it was a big enough problem back in, you know, 2014, 2015, 2013, 2016, and maybe even later, that we had special emails that we would send to credit unions explaining the law. And sometimes we'd have to call them up on the phone. I have to talk to their attorneys. I remember talking to one attorney. He apologized for what they did. I said, well, you need to do a better job educating your credit union. You got umpteen different branches. How many people have they been taking money from and not protecting the money? And this was just a few years ago. But credit unions are pretty good. We don't hear from them anymore about making mistakes. But if they ever were, we know what to do. So I can't tell you of a bank that doesn't follow law. They've got a department in the bank that deals with it. So, but if you ever ask your bank manager, he's not going to know the answer, or he's going to give you the wrong answer. Okay, so if you call him out of the blue saying, I heard this attorney saying that half my income, Social Security protected my bank account, was protected from garnishment. Sometimes I've heard him say, well, no, if we get an order from the court, we have to honor that garnishment. No, they're wrong. Well, there's a department of the bank that deals with it, and they're the ones that deal with garnishments, and they understand the rule. So don't worry about that, Rick, okay? Okay. So on the same topic, someone writes in and they say, you said that you could have twice the amount of Social Security and pension money in your bank account. Is that gross amount before taxes are taken out? Well, okay, it's not pension, it's Social Security or federal benefit. So if you have a federal pension, that's a federal benefit, okay? So it's twice the amount that's deposited in your account, not the gross, the net, because uh, your bank doesn't see the gross. All they see is the net. That's what's deposited in your account. So if the net amount deposited in your account is $2,000 from Social Security, it's protected. Okay, twice that amount, 4,000 is protected. But let's say you had 2,000 in Social Security and then you had $1,000 in a VA benefit. Okay, then that's 3,000 total in federal benefits. Times two is 6,000 is protected automatically from garnishment. And so it's the net because your bank doesn't know what you get gross. They just have to identify where the money came from, and it's based on your net, twice the amount of your net. Now, if you happen to have more than that in the account, then they could hold, and there was a judgment, and they happen to garnish the account, which is all pretty unlikely, but if that happened, um, normally in most states you could file what's called a challenge of garnishment or claim of exemption and get the excess money released. Okay? Okay. Okay, here we go. Here's something. We just got a Florida information form with a default judgment. They want names and addresses of our children, tag numbers of our truck, bank account numbers, etc. Do we have to send this information? Been with help for a long time. Okay, that's called a fact information sheet. Okay, I may have a copy here. I may not. I had one earlier. I'll show it to you and explain it. Okay. So different states have different rules or laws on what happens after someone gets a judgment. A few states, and Florida's one of them, has a form that, under the rules of civil procedure, which is kind of like allows an attorney, if he gets a judgment against you, to send you this form, and you're required under the rules of the court to fill out this form and return it. Okay? It's called a fact information sheet. And I'll show you what it looks like. If I can find it here. I've got it here. I just got to bring it up. There it is there. And they have them for different counties, but so this is what it asks for. Full legal name, nicknames, resident address, phone number, employer. So you can still right off the bat, for a lot of this isn't going to apply to seniors. You don't have an employer. That would be not applicable, not employed. They want your driver's license number. I think a lot of this stuff is not marital status. They want the spouse's income. They can't collect from the spouse. They ask for it. Your address, your home, car. Sometimes they ask for the kids' names and addresses. I don't see that on this form. Maybe they took it off. That's a good thing. Why do they care about your kids? I don't know. Oh, yeah, here it is. Name and address of all your children and addresses of not living with you. So, what do you do about this form? Well, technically, you're legally obligated to fill it out and return it. Okay? There's articles on it you can read about called Florida Fact Information Sheet. I notice a lot of the articles are written by attorneys that represent creditors, and so they're pretty blatant. You know, I tell people sometimes, and ask for it to be notarized. For a lot of our senior clients, they don't know how to get something notarized. If you can't notarize it, you just sign it and send it back to them. Do the best you can. But if you're a senior on Social Security with protected income, there's really nothing on this form that's going to cause you any problem. Okay? You can't. And I always tell people, find a place on the form to put down that you're on Social Security, you can't afford to pay the debt. And I've had a lot of people that have sent this form back and it's not been completely filled out. I don't ever recall an attorney coming back when they found out the person was on Social Security or a little pension and trying to ask them to fill out the rest of the form. Okay. So that's that fact information sheet. Now, that's not every state, mind you. Just a few states. Just Florida's the only one that has that form. But some states will use state law, the debt collectors will, to try to intimidate or scare someone into paying a debt. And this form could do that if you lived in Florida, because you get that and you say, oh, they're going to go after my kids. I have to put my kids' names and address. And if the judgment's just against you, they can't go after your wife. Oh, I don't. So if you don't know it doesn't tell you what your rights are. So this form is designed for someone of any age, but it doesn't talk about the specific protections that there are for a senior. So my last examination, Jimmy says, was from a creditor lawyer, asked if I owned a gun. Why in the world would they need that information? Well, depends on the state. Most states have exemption laws that will protect a gun, but I've never seen anyone go after a gun. They never do it. So I don't know. They ask it, if they ask if you have a gun, you might think to yourself, gee, I better make arrangements to pay them something, otherwise they're going to come take my gun. Not the case. Okay? So once again, I think sometimes they ask these questions hoping that you're going to be scared and you're going to call them and make arrangements to pay the debt when you really don't have to. So if a senior wanted to help a family member buy a home so they won't be homeless, like co-sign with the loan, do you think that will affect them getting A home senior is a helps member? No, you don't have to sign on the loan unless it is going to help them. You may be a helps member and have really good credit. A lot of our clients do have credit, or they've rebuilt their credit. I don't see any problem with that. Okay. Person from Maine contacts us. Um, I am retired. He's almost 70. I own my home and have accumulated about 25,000 in credit card debt with high interest rates. Would like to know what options are available for me. So, uh, I'm assuming that your only income is Social Security. It's protected. You could choose not to pay the debt. Now, what about your home? Well, the homestead exemption in Maine is 160,000 if you're over, I think, 60 or 62 and over, and this person's nearly 70. Um, so if you had a home that was worth 250 and you owed 100 on it, you have 150,000 equity. Your home is protected. Even if you had the home free and clear, they're not going to go after your home. They don't do that. It's not the practice of consumer judgment creditors to try to go after a person's home, even if they have equity in the home over and above the homestead exemption for that state. So this person contacts us. It looks like an existing client in Massachusetts, and their age is 77. We call them back, and they have $40,000. I don't know if that's what the lawsuit is. They've been sued for $40,000. So in Massachusetts, you've got a homestead exemption of 100,000, but then you can file a special homestead exemption protection form that gives you $1,000,000. And they had done that, so they have $1,000,000 exemption in their home. The home was only worth about 250. We discussed how their income was protected. Um, this was an existing client who had been sued. They had 4,000 in a savings account, and they had saved that from their Social Security. So technically, you could say it was protected. But I told her it'd be better to pull that money out of there, put it in a cashier's checks or debit card or cash. Because if they got a judgment, the bank got garnished, they could put a hold on that money, and you have to file paperwork to get it released. Could be a headache. It's better just to keep it out of there and only have one account. That's the account to which your Social Security is deposited, because twice that sum will be protected by your bank automatically. Oh, she owned the home with an estranged husband and hasn't seen him for a few years. And she went to an attorney wanting to know what to do about the home. And the attorney actually gave her good advice. He said, don't divorce him. Wait for him to die, because if you own the home together with survivorship rights, when he passes away, the property will then be in your name only. But if you divorce him now, he could ask for some of the proceeds from the home. So if he hasn't done that yet, maybe just wait. And we talked about there being a judgment lien on the home, but they couldn't take the home and what to do down the road. See, what our job helps is we don't give legal advice, we give legal information. And our main purpose is to protect you from the creditors harassing you. When you enroll in helps, you give us the creditors you owe money to. We send them a cease and desist letter. They're going to leave you alone. But we also educate seniors about their financial independence. The laws that protect your income are pretty basic. Okay, there's nothing magic about them, and so we don't want you to worry. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I only have SSI. I have credit card debt I can't pay. Do now. They threaten to sue. Should I sign up now or wait until I'm actually sued? Doesn't matter. Okay. If we have, and I've explained this before, if we have 5 people that contact us, maybe 1 has been sued, 3 or 4 are behind and being harassed by creditors, and 1 is current on everything. They finally realize they can't pay the debt. So it doesn't matter who you are or where you are. You can enroll now or later. It's up to you. Okay. You don't have to wait till your creditors are hounding you or harassing you. You can enroll sooner than later. Some people, I talk to a lot of seniors, and some are more susceptible to this type of harassment than others. Some people are really totally intimidated by creditors calling. Some are not as intimidated, but most of them don't like the idea. Okay. I talked to an existing client in California today. And he called and left a message. He was considering to file bankruptcy. So, and because he was worried about his credit score, and he figured, gee, if I file bankruptcy in a couple of years, I can get my credit back. So I sent him a couple of emails. I sent him one email. We have 4 emails that we send to people. One is bankruptcy versus helps. And then I sent him another email about a program that helped started several years ago called 7 Steps to a 720 Credit Score for seniors. And I explained to him he could file bankruptcy. He had a home with equity less than what the homestead exemption is for where he lives in California. And he had an older model car. He could easily file bankruptcy. It would cost him a fair amount of money, and he didn't have a lot of money. So I told him, I said, you could do that and rebuild your credit after that. I said, also, you could rebuild your credit while you're with helps. A lot of our clients don't care about getting credit, but those that do, we have this program through 720 Credit Score. It's called 7 Steps to a 720 Credit Score for seniors. And after you've been part of helps for 90 days, we can send you an email, and we can send you an email earlier that talks about that program. Now, we do it after 90 days because you got to be a little bit behind before you start to rebuild your credit. And you can rebuild your credit just as fast without filing bankruptcy as filing bankruptcy. Okay? So I sent him that, and and he can make a decision then if he wants to file bankruptcy or not. It's up to him. So I titled this what a good attorney told someone. And they wrote in, they said this: my parents live in Alabama and are both unemployed and are on Social Security. Problem is they owe a lot of credit card debt. They tried to keep up with the bills, but it got too much for them on their Social Security only income. They contacted a lawyer in order to declare bankruptcy. But instead, the lawyer, after asking them questions about what they owed, said their assets aren't worth anything for collectors. They have a 20-year-old truck, 24-year-old car, a 30-year-old mobile home that would probably not survive being moved again, and living on rented land. And since he told them, and since their only income is Social Security, the collectors can't garnish it. So the lawyer told my parents to simply ignore their credit card debt and credit card bills, saying there's nothing of value creditors would want, and they can't garnish their Social Security income. And he asked, is it really that simple? Because the credit card companies are calling them every single day now, and I'm worried about them. So the good kid watching out for their mom and dad. Well, that's why I started helps. I was like that bankruptcy attorney. People would come into me and I tell them exactly that. I say your income is protected. They can't do anything to you. You really don't need to file bankruptcy, and you can't afford to file bankruptcy. Um, you don't need to do anything. But the problem was, I knew when I sent them home, the creditors were going to call them on the phone, scare them, and make their lives miserable. And that's what's happening here. He says, um, I don't know, what does he say? He said they're getting calls. Um, so they can't do anything to you. And he says, is it really that simple? Because the credit card companies are calling them every single day now. I'm worried about that. So Helps was started because back in 2012, because this was I was a senior partner in a real large law firm that filed bankruptcies. It's still in existence. It's even bigger now. And I had to be able to help seniors that were having these problems. So I knew about the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, provided if you were represented by an attorney, collectors could leave you alone. And so that's what Helps does. We represent seniors. We don't represent you in court. Don't need to go to court. Uh, we represent you under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act as your attorney to receive collector communication. So when you enroll in Helps, you give us the creditors you owe money to. We send out a cease and desist letter to these creditors you owe money to so that they have to leave you alone. So if this attorney would have known about us, he could have referred these people to Helps. And some of them do. But unfortunately, some attorneys still recommend bankruptcy when they really don't need to file it. So there's an easier way to stop the creditors from bothering you than to have to go through the time and expense and the headache of filing a bankruptcy. Okay. Person writes in, I wanted to get some information. My dad is 72, recently widowed, and has 4 credit cards totaling close to $20,000 in total. He's not working but receiving 2 types of retirement income. I'm helping to file for survival benefits, but I don't think that will be huge. My mom used to contribute to the payments from her Social Security and her retirement income. While he makes minimum payments on time, his cards are maxed out and he's not making a dent in paying them down. I'm unable to help him financially as my situation is not stable at the moment, but is there anything we can do to lower this debt? Will the credit card companies sympathize with his current situation at all? Recently widowed with the loss of a family member, unable to work due to declining health, etc. No, they're not going to sympathize with you, but you don't need to worry about it. They cannot do anything to you. And you try if we can enroll your dad in Helps, send these creditors a cease and desist letter. So they're going to leave him alone. If your dad ever has any questions or concerns, he can always call us on the phone. We'll explain to him why he's going to be okay. Don't need to worry. Um, can a debt collector garnish a virtual debit MasterCard? Well, I don't know. Are you talking about a debit card? So you get a debit card, Nick, that's attached to a bank account. Okay. And if that bank account, Social Security is deposited into that bank account, then twice the amount of Social Security in that account is protected from garnishment. So a debit card is not a credit card. It's totally different. It acts like a credit card. It's plastic, but if there's no money in your bank account to pay the what you incur on the debit card, doesn't get paid. So if the account to which the debit card is attached has protected income like Social Security, if they were to garnish that bank, twice the amount of Social Security or federal benefits in that account is protected automatically. Does that answer your question? So this person writes in and they say, can you address how not paying a credit card monthly payment affects your credit score? I would think it would completely trash your credit score. You might be surprised. But anyway, that doesn't seem like it would matter if you won't be buying a home, applying for loans, or trying to get another card. However, many landlords now require a minimum credit score and run credit checks. If you could address this, it would be appreciated. So, one thing I've already explained how you can rebuild your credit. Number two, through helps. Number two is we have a form letter. Um, we call it the landlord letter that we'll give to anyone that's on Social Security, especially a senior, uh, that explains to a prospective landlord that even though you may have negative entries on your credit, all your income, in other words, your Social Security, your pension, is protected. It can't be taken from you. It will always be available to pay rents. See, a credit score might be important for a younger person that's trying to rent because a landlord might be worried if that person got sued and they was being garnished, they wouldn't have some of their money being taken. They wouldn't have enough money to pay rent. But not the case with a senior. The senior sued and they're garnished, their income's protected. It can't be taken. It'll always be available to pay rent. And this letter explains that. And so we tell people to show that to a prospective landlord because a lot of times the landlord doesn't understand that. But maybe it's a corporation, and if you give them that letter and they say, oh, I didn't know that, but we still have our procedures, it could save you the application fee. Okay? But you can get your credit back. Person writes in, they say, I'm confused by the statute of limitations. If the debt happened in 2013 and the debt keeps being sold and updated to the current year. Well, okay. So 2013, 7 plus 5 is what? 12 years. So a statute of limitations has a couple meanings. Okay, one thing is statute of limitations has to do, there's criminal statute of limitations. If you commit a crime after so many years, they can't come after you, except for murder. There's no statute of limitations for murder. But and maybe some other crimes too. But for debt, it depends on the state. Some states it could be 5 years, it might be lower. In some states, 3 years. 6 years is pretty common. And that's usually from the date when the debt was incurred or when you last made a payment on the debt. So if you had a debt that was incurred in 2013 and you've been making payments all along, and the last payment you made was a couple of years ago, yeah, the statute of limitations, they could still legally sue you because it runs from the date when the debt was incurred or when you last made a payment. Okay? But then it depends on the state, again, where you live. Now, if the statute of limitations expires, that means they legally cannot file a lawsuit, but technically you still owe the debt. So a creditor could contact you and try to collect the debt. And I've had a number of clients give us copies of letters where they get a demand letter from a collector for a debt that's really old. And on the last sentence of the letter, someone said the other day, it said, oh, by the way, you owe this debt, but we cannot legally sue you, but please pay us anyway. Okay. You could, but you don't have to. And then depending on the state, if you paid them, it could revive the statute of limitations. So the statute of limitations, all that really has to do with is the time in which they have to file a lawsuit. And then there's something that's kind of like the statute of limitations. If they sue you and get a judgment, then they have so many years to collect on the judgment according to the state. Some states might limit it to 6 years, 10 years. Some states may have it 10 years and then they can renew it for another 10 years. Some states may allow them to renew it ongoing. Okay? But we'll talk to you about This person writes in, they say, this is on one of our videos, I think they said, boy, I wish I knew this when I had surgery. The hospital told me they would work with me to pay what the insurance didn't cover. I was sending money in every month. I sold my front room furniture and other items to pay what I could. Because I couldn't send $100 every month, they sent me to a collection agency. Now they only get $5 a month. It would have been paid off sooner if they had accepted what I could pay. Thank you for this information. It'll help me if I get into another situation like this. Well, you can stop paying them the $5. They can't collect from you. Remember, debt collectors aren't going to tell you, they don't have to tell you the truth. They don't have to tell you that your income is protected. So Thomas asked, I got a paper from the district court saying they scheduled for an answer hearing October 27th. Do I have to go to court for this? Well, okay. I'll explain what we tell people that are sued. If you're a client of helps or you call us and you've been sued and you have protected money and you owe the debt you're being sued for, uh, you don't necessarily need to go to court. If you owe the money, you go to court and you try to defend yourself, or even if you don't, you just get embarrassed because you owe the money. A lot of times these lawsuits talk about they'll have a court date or something like you say here on October 27th. But if you read it carefully, that's only if you're going to defend the lawsuit. If you're not going to defend the lawsuit, then they simply get a default judgment, which they would get anyway if you went to court. A judgment is a judgment is a judgment. So no, you don't. If you owe the money and you're not going to defend the lawsuit, and you know that your income is protected, they can't do anything to you. You don't have to go on October 27th. I guess only if you're going to defend the lawsuit. A lot of our clients, they don't care about defending the lawsuit because they owe the money. Okay. You can always send this. When it helps clients get sued, you can send the paperwork to us. We send a letter to the attorney that sued you, letting him know that your income is protected. They can't afford to pay the debt. And we call you on the phone explaining why you're going to be okay, why you don't need to go to court, why your assets are protected. Okay? So this person contacts us and they say, there's a comment on a video. It says, this is all fine and dandy for someone who is single. But for a senior who still has a wife who is not a senior yet, we still have all the same usual issues to face as younger folks do, because when you're married, then your spouse debt is also your debt as well. Not so. You may be talking about what's called a community property states. There are 7 states in the United States that are community property states, where technically, in many instances, if you incur a debt, like a husband incurs a debt, then the wife is also responsible for it. Okay? Even if her debt wasn't on the debt. Okay? Okay. Now, but I'll say this, in community property states, if you're a senior and you have a credit card and it's only in your name, and you don't pay it, a credit card lender isn't going to come after your spouse. They don't, even though legally I think they could. They just don't do it as a practice for a number of reasons. So we don't see seniors that in community property states like California who have a credit card debt that's owed maybe by the husband and they don't pay it, and maybe they have a younger spouse that they're going to sue the younger spouse. They don't do it. Okay? But we'll talk to anyone and go over this with them. But you could scare someone by telling them, yeah, you're responsible for that debt, you better pay it. That's one nice thing about helps is, we've got a lot of practical knowledge here that maybe people that are writing articles or giving so-called legal information to seniors with debt problems on websites don't have. I filed 30 to 40,000 bankruptcies before I started Helps, and the attorneys that work at Helps, man, we've been doing this for decades. So we know what happens in the real world. And so, it's like telling someone, boy, if you go to Circle K on Friday night at 10:30 or 10:37 at night, you could get hit by a drunk driver. You better not go to Circle K on Friday night to get that Slurpee. Now, do you live your life that way? No. Are you going to get hit by a drunk driver at 10:37 p.m. on Friday night? No. Is it possible? Well, I guess it is in the realm of possibilities, but the statistics are so low. We don't. If we lived our life that way, we would never we'd never get out of bed. We'd just stay there because we'd be worried that, what's going to happen. No, no, don't need to worry. Is a Cash App safe to keep a small amount of money in for extra debit card purchases? Yeah, I don't know how they would ever. I've never heard of a Cash App being garnished. Sometimes I think it's better if you had cash, you put it on a preloaded debit card. You can get it at Walmart, Walgreens, grocery stores, different places, or even cash in hand. Okay. Okay. So this person writes in on a comment on one of our videos, and they say, yes, senior's income is protected to a certain amount. Then what happens when the senior gets served a report to pretrial mediation? If the senior does not show up to this pretrial mediation hearing, the collector's lawyers will obtain a judgment including all court keys and court costs and fees. If this judgment, in this judgment, the lawyers can levy your bank accounts. This you cannot stop. What do seniors do now? Well, poor guy is just under total misconception. Let me go over this. You go to pretrial mediation if you're going to contest a lawsuit. If you don't contest a lawsuit and you owe the money, sure, they can get a judgment. It doesn't matter if they get a judgment for $1 million. If your income is Social Security or pension, disability, VA benefits, it's protected. They can't take it. It says here, in this judgment, the lawyers can levy your bank account. Well, they can levy their bank account till they're blue in the face. But as long as you keep the balance in your bank account less than twice the amount of your Social Security, it's protected. They can't get anything. The bank is going to protect it without you doing anything. It says this you cannot stop. Well, you don't need to stop it because the bank's going to stop it for you. What do seniors do now? Well, they don't need to do anything because nothing bad's going to happen to them. So listen to more of our videos and what we talk about here. Call us on the phone if you're this person asking this question. Now, this is exactly what a judgment creditor would want you to think. They'd want you to think if you're sued, you got to call them up, make arrangements to make payments because they're going to garnish it, they're going to get a judgment, and they're going to take money from your bank account, which isn't the case. Okay, this person writes in and they say, if a senior has a 401k, is it in jeopardy of garnishment by a collection agency? So, a lot of times when these YouTube videos, we talk about the same thing sometimes over and over because a lot of seniors have the same problems, and we have new people come in and out on these videos. But a 401k is protected, like an IRA, independent retirement account. Virtually all forms of retirement are protected, can't be taken. So, yeah, if you have an IRA and someone gets a judgment against you, they can't touch it. You're going to be fine. So this person contacts us from Florida. Um, they're 76. They have 1,500 in Social Security income and 34,000 in debt. He says, I'm 76 and just received a summons to appear from one of my several credit cards. I can't pay any of them, and I can't pay my condo fees. I was in the hospital for a while. My only income is Social Security. I have to send a letter within 20 days, but I don't know what to write. You don't need to do anything if you've been sued. They can't touch your condo in Florida, can't touch your Social Security. So he's worried about other credit cards suing him. He has to pay HOA fees every month. He's afraid of losing his home. He's got substantial equity in the condo. He's been being helped by a church group with transportation. A lot of debt. Do I need to respond or go to court? No, is the answer. He understands how his account is protected. He's watched our videos. And we talked to him more about how to enroll with helps. We enrolled him, took the lawsuit information, so he doesn't need to worry. So he doesn't need to worry about any of this debt. He can use that money to pay for his condo fees and for his HOA fees. And we're going to talk to him, explaining what his rights are. Okay? Why he's going to be okay. So it's almost been an hour. I think it's a good time to maybe stop for today. Now, remember, tomorrow we have Helps YouTube Live, but we have it 2 hours later. 2 hours later. So if you have any questions, if you're new, call us on the phone below, 855-435-7787, or you can 855 helps us or helps us. If you have a phone with the letters on it, helps us, helps us or helps us. Thanks for the good question you've had today. Please share what we do with others. Press the like button. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, do that. That all helps get the information out so more seniors find out about us. We talked to a lot of seniors that wish they would have found out about us sooner. So please share what we do with helps. That helps with others, and everyone have a great day. God bless. Bye.